Introduction. Why nonverbal communication matters. When people say things like, actions speak louder than words, or it's not what you said, it's how you said it, they are pointing to the power of nonverbal communication. This chapter focuses on everything we communicate without relying on words, yet still profoundly shape meaning in our interactions. Nonverbal communication is always present. Even when we are silent, we are still communicating through posture, facial expressions, eye contact, or lack of it, and our use of space. Because of this, nonverbal communication often carries more weight than spoken language when people are deciding what to believe. Section 4.1. Defining nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is best defined as communication without words. It includes obvious behaviors, such as facial expressions, gestures, eye contact, posture, touch, and tone of voice, as well as less obvious cues like clothing, personal objects, time use, silence, and physical space. A key idea here is that nonverbal communication cannot be turned off. You can stop talking, but you cannot stop communicating nonverbally. Silence itself sends a message. Humans use nonverbal communication for several important reasons. Words have limits. Some things are simply easier to show than explain. Describing direction, emotion, or physical shape is often more effective through gesture or expression. Nonverbal communication is harder to control. Because much of it is unconscious, nonverbal behavior is often perceived as more honest than words. It allows us to express socially restricted feelings. Social norms may prevent us from saying certain things aloud, but nonverbal cues, like facial tension or tone, still reveal them. It adds richness and complexity to verbal messages. Tone, facial expression, and body language help listeners understand intent, attitude, and emotional meaning. Children rely heavily on nonverbal communication before they develop language, and even after verbal skills emerge, nonverbal communication continues to operate alongside speech for our entire lives. Section 4.2. Characteristics of nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication differs from verbal communication in several important ways. 1. It uses multiple channels. Simultaneously, verbal communication operates through one channel at a time: words. Nonverbal communication, on the other hand, uses many channels at once. You can gesture, smile, nod, shift posture, and change vocal tone all at the same time. This complexity makes nonverbal communication powerful, but also difficult to interpret accurately. 2. It is continuous and ongoing. Words have clear beginnings and endings. Nonverbal communication does not. Even when we are listening, waiting, or silent, our body and behavior continue to send messages. Because of this, we are always communicating nonverbally, whether we intend to or not. 3. It can be conscious or unconscious. Most verbal communication is conscious and intentional. Much nonverbal communication is unconscious. Automatic reactions like smiling, frowning, leaning away, or sighing. However, nonverbal communication can also be deliberate, especially in situations like interviews, presentations, or formal interactions where people carefully manage posture, clothing, and eye contact. Because so much nonverbal behavior is unconscious, people often trust what they see more than what they hear. 4. It is cultural, though some elements are universal. Research suggests that a small set of emotional expressions, such as happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, and surprise, tend to be recognized across cultures. However, most nonverbal communication is culture-bound. Eye contact, personal space, posture, touch, and time use can mean very different things in different cultures. This makes cultural awareness critical when interpreting nonverbal behavior. Section 4.3. Types of nonverbal communication. This section explains the primary categories through which nonverbal communication occurs. Kinesics, body movement and facial expression. Kinesics refers to body movement, facial expressions, gestures, posture, and eye contact. Facial expressions are especially powerful for expressing emotion, while eye contact often signals interest, attentiveness, or confidence, though meanings vary by culture. Although people believe they can read body language easily, interpreting kinesic cues accurately is difficult and should always be done cautiously. Haptics. Touch haptics focuses on touch, one of the earliest forms of communication humans experience. Touch can communicate comfort, closeness, affection, dominance, or aggression. Cultural norms strongly influence how touch is interpreted. In some cultures, frequent touch is normal. In others, it is reserved for close relationships. When unsure, it is safest to avoid touch. Personal appearance and artifacts. Personal appearance includes clothing, hairstyles, accessories, tattoos, makeup, and personal objects. These choices communicate identity, values, social roles, and group membership. Even objects like cars, phones, or jewelry send messages about status, priorities, and self-image. These meanings are shaped by cultural and social expectations. Proxemics. Use of space. Proxemics is the study of physical distance between people. In many North American contexts, 4 distance zones are commonly recognized: intimate distance, personal distance, social distance, public distance. Distance choices communicate relationship closeness, formality, and social status. Vertical space, such as standing versus sitting, can also signal power or dominance. Environment also matters. The way people organize homes, classrooms, offices, or public spaces communicates values, mood, and intent. Chronemics. Use of time. Chronemics focuses on how we use and perceive time. Punctuality, speed, waiting, and scheduling all communicate meaning. In the United States, punctuality is often associated with professionalism and respect. In other cultures, time is more flexible and relational. Differences in time orientation can easily lead to misunderstandings. Paralanguage. Vocal qualities. Paralanguage includes how words are spoken, not what words are spoken. This includes volume, pitch, rate, inflection, pauses, silence, vocalizations, and disfluencies. Paralanguage communicates emotion, confidence, sincerity, and engagement. Tone can reinforce or contradict verbal messages, as in sarcasm. Silence itself is also a powerful form of nonverbal communication, capable of signaling discomfort, control, resistance, or reflection. Section 4.4. Functions of nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication serves several key functions in relation to verbal messages. Repeating verbal messages. Gestures or expressions reinforce spoken words. Replacing verbal messages. Nonverbal cues like nodding or waving can substitute for words entirely. Complementing or contradicting verbal messages. Nonverbal behavior can support what is said or reveal inconsistency. Accenting verbal messages. Emphasis through tone, gesture, or facial expression strengthens meaning. Regulating interaction. Nonverbal cues help start, manage, and end conversations. Indicating relationships. Space, touch, and posture signal closeness, familiarity, or status. Expressing emotions. Emotions are often conveyed more through nonverbal cues than words. Demonstrating cultural norms. Nonverbal behavior reflects cultural expectations and values. Mixed messages and the Morabian principle. A mixed message occurs when verbal and nonverbal messages conflict. Research by Albert Morabian suggests that when inconsistency exists, people tend to rely more on nonverbal cues than on words. While not applicable to every situation, this principle reinforces the importance of aligning verbal and nonverbal communication. Section 4.5. Interpreting nonverbal communication. The final section emphasizes caution and humility when interpreting nonverbal cues. Cultural and individual differences. Interpretations are shaped by culture, experience, and perspective. Behaviors considered polite or engaged in one culture may appear disrespectful or disinterested in another. Neurodiversity and nonverbal communication. Neurodivergent individuals may use or interpret nonverbal communication differently. Differences in eye contact, touch, posture, and vocal behavior are not signs of incompetence or disinterest. They represent different communication styles. Effective communicators avoid assumptions and seek clarification when unsure. Nonverbal communication in text-based interaction. Even in written communication, people rely on substitutes like emojis, punctuation, spacing, and tone indicators to convey meaning and emotional intent, especially in informal contexts. Concluding perspective. Nonverbal communication is constant, powerful, and complex. It shapes meaning, reveals emotion, regulates interaction, and reflects culture. Because it is often unconscious and culturally influenced, effective communication requires awareness, empathy, and restraint in interpretation. Understanding nonverbal communication doesn't make us mind readers, but it does make us more thoughtful, flexible, and ethical communicators.